All right, Volvo have just revealed their brand new electric SUV, the Volvo EX60. It's the mid-sized follow-up to the best-selling XC60, a very important car and big shoes to fill for Volvo. In this video, we'll have a look at the interior design, exterior, some of its key specs, and see how it stacks up against its competitors, such as the recently revealed BMW iX3 and Mercedes-Benz GLC EQ. So let's start off with some of the key facts first. So Volvo claimed over 800 kilometers of range on a charge. So this makes the longest range Volvo ever. It's a huge step up for the brand and probably going to be the standard moving forward, as we have seen with BMW and Mercedes. The last generation of car, we saw maybe 500 to 600 kilometers being okay, but no longer that's going to be acceptable. And I think soon we'll be hitting that 1,000 kilometer mark as well. So good to see that they've had a step up on range here. It rides on Volvo's new plug-in core electrics platform. It's very much computer driven. It's got a huge and powerful CPU, which runs the infotainment, safety systems, and zone controllers. So it's pretty much a rolling computer. And this is really the model that Tesla pioneered along with Rivian, Volkswagen are going down this route as well. So yeah, very important that Volvo are able to do this, join the party, and be able to update basically every core function of their car remotely. It can add hundreds of kilometers of range in under 20 minutes, so very fast charging on its high-power DC charger. Batteries integrated into the body using cell-to-body tech and uses mega casting, which cuts weight and boosts efficiency and improves rigidity as well for the body. Inside, the cabin has gone very minimalist. They've moved away from the portrait touchscreen layout that they've had for the longest time, pretty much since the second gen XC90. Again, going down the Tesla route, so we'll have to see if that's going to turn out to be any better. There's also going to be a cross-country version, which adds a little more off-road panels, a tougher design as well, which I think looks better. It's funny how they're adding cross-country to an SUV, whereas previously they would only add it to wagons that needed that off-road element to it. But you would think an SUV already has that element, but that's a sign of the times. But SUVs are just a standard car these days that run about in the city, and then having to add additional hardcore off-road styling to make them actually live up to their purpose of being an off-road vehicle, or at least have the appearance of going off-road. And powertrain options, so there are three motors. There's the rear-wheel drive P6, which is about 275 kilowatts, which is already a massive amount of power just for the base model. Then you step up to the P10, which is a dual motor all-wheel drive variant, 100 extra kilowatts at 375 kilowatts, which not so long ago was supercar territory. And then you've got the P12, which is frankly ridiculous and has 500 kilowatts of power. So, definitely not going to be short of any go on this car. But I think what's important for Volvo customers is going to be that range figure, which is 800 kilometers. Let's have a look now at the interior and exterior styling. Starting off with the exterior here, you can see that it evokes the EX90 that was revealed a year or two ago, but same sort of evolution of the Thor's hammer headlamps with a more pixelated motif here. You've got probably the running lights, whereas the main beams are likely to be more down here. You've got a very, very simple lower air dam here. Of course, the big Volvo crest. It's a very simple design. Given that it's electric, you don't need a full rail or anything like that. For me, it's a little bit boring. It could have a little more design flair. Moving on to the rear three quarters. It's still a very handsome vehicle, don't get me wrong. You've got that sharp shoulder line crease that runs into the rear tail lamps. Very crisp sub profile. It's a bit more of a longer wheelbase, of course, because you can push the wheels out to the corners given it's EV and you don't have the engine up front. The proportions are slightly different, but it doesn't look too strange, which some EVs in the past have had that look. Very much a simplified design. You've got a nice little carving here down below that takes away some of that visual weight. But otherwise, there's not too much to speak of here at all. The rear tail lamps here are a new look for Volvo. Slightly evolved. They've had this vertical arrangement for 20, 25 years now. but a little bit more of a different design. So you've got solid lines here in the lower section, and that pixel motif you saw at the front comes back at the top here. The middle section is more blank than before. You had the number plate sitting a little higher up, but now with that space freed up, that lower number plate sits a little bit downward away from that center boot section. Again, just a crisp, minimalist design, not very controversial, but not super interesting either. And this bluish gray color probably doesn't help. But what is nice to see is this cross-country variant, which does add a little bit more styling flair. So you've got these black sections that run into the lower main beams. And you've got that cladding on the side. These wheels look more interesting and aerodynamic than the standard car too. And I really like how it contrasts with this whitish, creamish color as well. A little bit more of an interesting look. Visually breaks things up a little bit. There's a huge trend going on around at the moment of cars looking monolithic and everything's being in the same color or in the same kind of style. It seems like it's one block, but it takes away some of the visual interest from the car that we've had in the past. At least with this cross-country variant, you've got a few more details going on here as well. This lower section has an aluminium type skid plate. I think the cross-country would be the variant that I would go for if I was to buy this car. It looks more like an SUV, which you want when you buy an SUV. It has a bit of character as well, which I think is lacking from the standard car. Moving on to the interior, there have been some big changes here too. So if we look here, first starting off with the steering wheel, which is no longer circular in shape, surprisingly, with the gauge clusters moving higher up in the cockpit. They're trying to squish those steering wheels down so that they don't block that higher section, and you can have that clear visibility of your speedo and other key information. Ergonomically, I think most people would still be used to a circular steering wheel, so this more squared up shape may take some getting used to, but at least it's got physical buttons. It seems like you've got the navigation controls, menu items. It seems like you might be able to play with a few other settings like cruise control and whatnot from here. So it's good that they haven't gone all capacitive with the steering wheel, even if they have changed the design and it looks a little bit strange. As I mentioned before, you've got a slim, well, it's not really a gauge cluster anymore. It's more like another screen that you've got at top here. It just pops up like a little mini iPad. And then in the middle, you've got a massive center screen, which looks a little bit more like stablemates, the Geely cars. And you've got the Zeekrs as well, which employ a very similar infotainment screen. It's disappointing for me. I don't mind it being horizontal, vertical, like as long as the screen real estate is reasonable enough, doesn't matter a whole lot. But it definitely doesn't feel as well integrated as the previous model, which really felt like the screen was part of the interior design from the start. Here it looks like they've designed the rest of the car, then they've added the screens on top as the last minute. I'm sure that wasn't the case, but that's the look it gives off. I like how there's this flowing middle section here, which looks like it would be customizable. So there was similar treatment in the previous car too. Some of these materials look really nice and soft touch as well. The speaker grill looks a bit like a felt material. Actually looks a little bit like the Tesla Model 3 in some ways. So yeah, I think they've definitely taken some inspiration from Tesla, rightly or wrongly, and maybe if that's what they feel the market wants, and that's why they've gone down this road. But just like the exterior, I feel like a little bit of character has disappeared from the car by making it so minimalist as well. You've got a few different controls here. I'm not too sure what these hard buttons do, but this looks like the majority of controls for the air conditioning, media. Of course, all the settings will still be handled by a central screen here. A better look at the steering wheel as well. It looks like you've got that voice control functionality. They've used Google Gemini now to control the voice. Hopefully it's better than previous gen voice controls. They've been saying this for a couple of generations now, but they haven't been getting too much better. So we'll have to wait until the first reviews to see if it is an improvement. But if it is using generative AI, you would think that it would work a little bit more naturally. They can ask different questions to it, general knowledge. I'm not sure how useful that is within a car. I think within a car, you basically want to control the main functions of the vehicle and leave the general knowledge and fun facts to outside of the vehicle when you're not driving. But I think given it is generative AI, it has the ability, so that's why they're touting that, of course. I do like this alternative color scheme. I definitely think Volvos in general look better with a lighter color scheme. You've got that two-tone design here of the steering wheel, darker on the outer rim, and then the light finish inside on the hub, and the rest of the rim, the inner rim here. Definitely lightens up the interior a little bit, looks a little bit more premium too. I think it is a little bit more of a minimalist and pared back interior. They've also moved to electric door handles. So here you've got an electric release, and if you pull it harder, you've got the physical release that's similar to Tesla's. Even on the outside, if we look at the door handles, of course, it's a very clean design, but they've got new door handles that are electrically operated up here, which you can pull. I think there's a button that sits behind these little handles at the top. Almost looks like a Ford Mach-E door handle or even a Lincoln Continental, the last generation of that car. There are doubts about how well this will work in colder conditions. You would think Volvo, being a Scandinavian brand, have tested this extensively when door handles freeze over. They have mentioned this is an iceberg design, so you can pull this as hard as you want, and there's still a lot of hardware under here, so it wouldn't necessarily break off or have any issues there. But I'm generally not a fan of electric door handles, especially if the mechanism is very similar to the mechanical mechanism. Why wouldn't you just use the mechanical way, save a bit of money, complicates things less as well. So especially if you're in an accident, you don't want your electronics to go wrong. So there are some regulations in China clamping down on this, although Volvo say that's more on the exterior side of things with flush door handles, and they feel that these door handles will be exempt to those new regulations that are coming, I believe, in 2027. Let's have a look to see how it compares with the previous gen vehicle. So here you can see with the XC60, the latest facelift of it. In my opinion, you can see the detailing of the grille here, the side air curtains as well. Even the lower down just feels like it's a little bit more premium. I really like this treatment that they've got of cross-hatching that complements the Volvo Shield very well indeed. Just the way the Thor hammer LEDs flow into the center grille, sculpting you've got here on the sides of the bonnet. I wholeheartedly prefer the front end of the XC60, whereas this looks under-designed in comparison. Moving on to the rear, really the same story. I mean, you can see how many more creases that the XC60 has got with the side profile. So you've got one lower middle crease going down here, and another one flowing into the tail lamps, and then you've got that molding down the bottom. So you've got some similar design traits here, but really it's just this one crisp shoulder line that still remains from the previous car. It's disappointing that there aren't a little bit more detailing going on here. They'll say it's for aerodynamics, but I think you lose a little bit of identity when you pay your cars back so much. And I think Mercedes have realized this with some of the latest generation cars and trying to bring back a little bit more identity with a new grille and things like that. Hopefully Volvo tend to, for the next generation of cars, bring back a little bit more of what made their last generation of vehicles so special. Moving on to the interior, you can see even though this was a car that had a touchscreen, a pretty large touchscreen for the start, it still feels more integrated with the facelift. It feels a bit more iPad-esque because it's just a bit bigger, but originally this was more integrated within the vents here. You love to see a traditional gauge cluster with a nice little hood on top. Everything feels so integrated, so premium. You've got that crystal gear lever here too. I think even these air vents, that attention to detail on these air vents, just so beautiful. This interior is probably one of the best in its class and the last generation cars when compared to BMW, Audi, Mercedes. I think Volvo nailed it. I think this is a huge step back in this regard. Because they've gone down that minimalist route, there's no visible air vents. There's no opportunity to craft it to how they want to either. You need to bring back that identity, show craftsmanship, taking it back so that there's no visible elements. Literally the screen is the main focus of the car, I think, isn't the best move for Volvo. It just cheapens the look overall. On the plus side, this infotainment, it looks very, very quick. It's all Google powered. A slick entertainment system is what you need in 2026. So it looks a lot better than the previous car in that regard, which you would expect. As I mentioned before, you're wholly able to update different functions of the car with its new electrical and technological architecture. So over the air update is going to become even more and more important for this car. I wish there was a little bit more of the Volvo flair that we saw in previous years. So that's the new Volvo EX60, some impressive specs, some so-so design elements as well. But keen to hear your thoughts. What do you think? Do you think Volvo have dropped the ball with this car? Do you think it's a worthy successor to the XC60? Let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, feel free to give it a like and subscribe for more content like this. See you later.